thanks very much for coming to the online launch of my new book, Pagan Portals Scrying. Now, it's officially published by Moon Books today. That's the 25th of February, 2022. Now, if you're watching a recording, you might be watching it later than that, but the 25th of February is when I'm doing this Facebook Live. Now, while I was planning what to say at my launch, apart from please buy my book, I thought I'd look up auspicious things that happened on February the 25th. In previous years, that is, back in the past. Well, in 1964, Cassius Clay, oh, hello, I see there's a few people joining. Hello, John. Hello, Jane. Very nice to see you. Yeah, as I was saying, I look back to see what happened on this day in previous years. And in 1964, Cassius Clay, who later became Muhammad Ali, defeated Sonny Liston to become the boxing heavyweight champion of the world. Now, interestingly, Muhammad Ali, as well as being the world's greatest boxer, oh, hello, Leslie Ann Brewster. Hello, Eve and Leslie Ann. Hello. Thank you for joining me. Lovely to see you there. Anyway, yes, I was saying, Cassius Clay, who became Muhammad Ali, great boxer, also a great poet. His most famous lines, which I'm sure people have heard, are float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, the hands can't hit what the eyes can't see. Well, okay, here's the segue into my book launch, because another word for scrying is just seeing. Looking into a crystal ball, mirror, cauldron, teacup, or whatever. And we can learn to see what to watch out for in the world around us. And then we can decide whether we want to aim for that or try to dodge it. What I set out to do in Pagan Portals Scrying is teach ways to do that. And I do genuinely believe that everybody has some psychic ability and can learn to scry. Some people do find it easier than others. Some people say, oh, no, I'm not psychic at all. But I genuinely believe that although some people might be more talented in certain ways than others, with enough practice, with exercise, and just trying out different methods, everybody can learn to do it to some extent. My book tries to help everyone do that. And it is practical. My book is intended to be practical. I explain various methods of scrying with different techniques to try to make them work, and lots of exercises to try out. So I'm going to read the description on the back of the book. Scrying is the practice of looking into crystal balls, mirrors, water, fire, clouds, and many other things to see visions, find messages, and gain knowledge. It can be done for personal guidance, for inspiration, to find the answers to questions, to look at different places or other realms. Or, of course, you can do it for fortune telling and prophecy. It's a form of divination that taps into our psychic senses and powers of intuition. Now, I got a lovely endorsement from Jennifer Texera, the author of Pagan Portals, Temple of the Bones, Rituals to the Goddess Hecate, which is in itself a lovely book. Oh, hello, Saldi. Nice to see and hear you. Okay, that's fine. No, you don't need to stay long. I totally understand that you are up to your neck in readings. And wonderful. Thanks for popping in. If you do have to pop in and then pop out again, it's perfectly okay to watch the recording later. It will stay on Facebook and you can watch it later. But it's really lovely to see so many people here. Thank you. Thank you very much. So yes, I was saying I got a lovely endorsement from Jennifer Texera, who wrote a lovely Pagan Portals book about Hecate, which I found to be an excellent book myself. But what she said about my book is a must-have, a clear and concise guidebook into the art of scrying. Stars will guide you into all the steps necessary to be successful in your practice. This book is great for beginners and is a good resource for the more advanced practitioners, which I think is a brilliant. I'm really glad that, that's what she felt, and I do hope other people do too. Now, that's what's on the back of the book. I'm going to describe what's inside. The Facebook Live isn't going to be a workshop on scrying. I do teach workshops on scrying, and some of them are online, but what I'm really doing is a brief overview of the book and answering questions and things like that. So if you do have any questions, start to type them into the comments and I can answer them later. I have been given a few questions already, which I'm going to answer. Now, the first part of my book uses a lot of the materials from my workshops. I have been running workshops in scrying for quite a number of years at pagan conferences and conventions and festivals, at Treadwell's and at Atlantis Bookshop and various other places. And what I really tried to do was try to get a lot of the material from my workshops into my book. And what I'll also say is that from running the workshops, a lot of the questions that people have asked me during the workshops and learning how other people have taken to the exercises, and then adapting them to be, you know, better, one hopes, that a lot of that information has found its way into my book, which is one of the reasons why I really hope that it is going to be useful for people. Now, the book starts by explaining what scrying is, and then it quickly goes into all the preparations that you can do before you start, like setting up your space, cleansing your devices, and getting into the right state of mind. Because in my experience, the preparation for scrying can really help your scrying be successful. Then, even more important, how to actually scry. And there are quite a few different techniques that different people use. Oh, hello, Concha. Hello from Seville. Hello. Yes, there are a lot of different techniques that people can use when they're scrying. A very common one is to look into it as though you're looking into a window, but that's not the only one. You can use the device more as an aid to prompt the psychic senses, and to prompt psychic senses other than your eyes. You can people sometimes hear sounds when they're scrying, or just get a feeling about things, or just know things, and get impressions in the mind. And so I also cover techniques to sort of help use the device for scrying in those kinds of ways. Then what to do afterwards, because that's important too. And in particular, I always recommend journaling. Write things down, keep a record of what you do, whether that's magical workings, but particularly when you're scrying, because I often find that when you're scrying, it can be like when you wake up from a dream. And there are very many reasons why it can be like that, but it can be dream symbolism, and you can feel a bit in a dreamlike state. So write it down, because, you know, I'm sure a lot of people know that a dream might be very vivid when you first wake up, but then it fades as the day goes on. So write it down, and then you can refer back to it later. And sometimes you'll think, oh, right, yeah, that's what that meant. And it can really help you. Then the final, before the final chapter, I've missed a bit. I go into various other methods of scrying, for example, tea and coffee ground readings. I look at scrying in outdoors, in clouds, trees, that kind of thing. And then I've got a list of symbols and shapes that you might see and what they have been interpreted as meaning. Now, I'm very much in favour of using your intuition as well as traditional interpretations. And I talk about using both, but it can be useful to look up what other people have said a certain symbol can mean. And then finally, I talk about problem solving and frequently asked questions. I'm talking about questions. I'm really happy to answer questions that people might want to ask. So if you do have a question, type it into the comments. I've already been asked a few questions over on my Facebook author page, so I'm going to start answering them now. Right. Now, the first question I got asked was, what is my favourite means of scrying? Well, what works best for me? And to be honest, ever since I was quite small, I found that clear glass or quite clear quartz crystals, whatever type of psychic work I'm doing, whether that's dowsing or scrying, um, kind of clear glass or quartz crystals work best for me. This is one of my quartz balls. It's quite clear. It's got quite a few inclusions in it as well, but that's one of the things I use. I've also got some glass balls that I use. Oh, what wonderful. Yeah, record absolutely. Yes. If you actually quite a few people, if they're scrying on their own, what Leslie Ambrose has said is that her writing's awful, but she can record a session. Absolutely. Now, if you're scrying on your own, then you can have a recording device open and you can say the things you see. Obviously, if you're in my workshops when there's a lot of people scrying, it would be quite intrusive. But yes, absolutely, you can record them in any way that is going to be good for you. So that can be typing up your notes on a computer, it can be keeping them in a journal or a personal book of shadows, or absolutely a voice recording, completely fine. Now, Jane Winter asked a few questions, and the first one was, what was the first type of scrying I ever used? Right, well, I've got the thing I used. This fishing float, when I was quite a tiny child on New Year's Eve, it was very traditional in my family that we would all do divination, scrying, some sort of fortune telling to see what would happen in the year ahead. And one year, in fact, I think it was a couple of years, but we got out this fishing float to use as a crystal ball. And fishing floats have really traditionally been used as scrying balls, especially in coastal areas where they come from. I wasn't very good at scrying with the crystal ball back then. Hello, Sue. Hello, Sue Terry. Very nice that you managed to pop in. Yeah, I wasn't really very successful with this scrying ball when I was a tiny child, but it really piqued my interest. I was absolutely fascinated with it. And I think it was that prompted me, sort of, as I got a bit older, to try out different methods of scrying. I got another very, very small little ball to scry with, and I found that I was much better with a clear glass ball than with a green fishing float. But I also read lots of books about it. Actually, my dad gave me a small book about scrying, which I found very useful. But yes, I've tried out different methods and got better at it. Probably another of my favourite methods is using a cauldron, and particularly in a coven setting. I think it's lovely when you're sitting around a cauldron with another group of witches who are your friends, and you're all scrying into the cauldron. You can share what you saw afterwards. So yeah, that's another favourite. Probably my favourite scrying device is this little silver dish, which I don't know if you can see, it's got seahorses holding it up, 3 little seahorses, and I absolutely love it. And I found it in a charity shop. Me and Becky Bird, who does the Witches Inn, we were in a charity shop together, and I am glad I saw this before she did, or she would have bought it. Anyway, I love it so much. I put it on the picture, on the photo that I took for the front cover of my book. There it is, together with one of my quartz balls and a candlestick. Right, next question. What are some methods you might recommend to people trying it out as beginners? Well, what I would say is use what you already have around the house if you can. If you're just starting out, don't go out and buy a really expensive crystal ball, because it might not suit you. And, well, I suppose if you've got lots of money, then go out and buy a crystal ball. But if you're kind of a bit hard up, like I tend to be, use things that are around the house. Now, most people have wine glasses. You can turn a wine glass upside down, and as you can see, it's not too bad as a crystal ball, especially if it's one that's even more curved than that. You can fill it up with wine or water, and red wine, white wine, water, black coffee, not hot black coffee straight into a glass, but you can then like look into the surface and scry into the surface or look into the side. So a wine glass is a really good thing to start out with. Going to charity shops are brilliant. I have found crystal balls in charity shops. Paperweights can be often found quite cheaply in charity shops. They're really good to scry with. I found cauldrons in charity shops. You can also get like dark coloured bowls in charity shops quite easily that can be used for scrying. So yeah, use what you've got. Then yeah, my book does go into quite a few different alternatives. When I was going to the fairy festival last year, I recycled some ready meal dishes and took them along for everyone to scry in, because it really didn't matter if they got lost or broken, and they were fine. Now, another question: are people likely to find some methods suit them more than others? And well, the short answer is absolutely yes. Yeah, different people will gel with different methods. Some people find a dark mirror is absolutely the best thing for them. Some people prefer crystal balls. Some people prefer cloud scrying or tea leaf scrying, or looking into the embers of a fire. And some people say, well, this is the only method that works for me. But that's fine. It doesn't matter. If one method works for you, that's fine. That is absolutely fine. We're not all going to be the same. Now, Emmanuel asked whether there are other words for scrying. Well, I've already said that seeing is another word for scrying. People don't really tend, I mean, I don't think people tend to use seeing that much, but in the past, seeing was used. And scrying to mean this kind of divination has really been used since the 16th century. And before that, it was a word that existed, but it wasn't really used for kind of crystal ball reading. Divination is obviously another word. Fortune telling, you know, that gets used, but it makes me think of fairground entertainment, so I don't really use that. You can say reading the crystal ball, or crystal gazing, or tea leaf reading. So reading and gazing. I must admit that when I did write my scribe book, I struggled a little bit to find enough different terms for variety. You don't want to have the word scrying every few sentences. But yeah, there's a few words you can use. Then I had a question about famous examples of scrying in history and literature. Well, the most famous are probably John Dee and Edward Kelly. Dee's crystal ball and obsidian mirror, you can see them in the British Museum, and they use them to try to contact angels. Then Nostradamus, the famous prophet, used a bowl of water to scry his predictions. In literature, the magic mirror that the Wicked Queen in Snow White uses is probably the best known example. My favourite is in Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings, though, and the Mirror of Galadriel. There's a whole chapter called The Mirror of Galadriel, and she guides the hobbits into a secret glen and fills a silver chalice, a silver ewer up with water, and pours it into a silver bowl, and she breathes on the water and invites the hobbits to look into it and see within. And it's a brilliant description. Well recommended. Now, does anyone have any other questions? I'm not seeing any other questions at the moment, but if you want to type any questions in, that's great. While I'm waiting, I'll tell you where you can buy my book. Well, I'd always recommend buying books from independent shops if possible. Treadwell's at 33 Store Street in Bloomsbury in London always keeps copies of my books in stock. Well, usually, you know, sometimes they go out of stock if people buy too many, which is okay because they'll order some more. Anyway, most bookshops will be able to order them. They are in the warehouse. The publisher is making sure there's sufficient in the warehouse. The first print run sold out. It went, you know, it's gone into shops. Shops have it, but the warehouse sold out. And just this week, even before publication, they've printed more. So, you know, it is getting printed, it's getting restocked, and you can order it through shops. You can also order from Amazon, Waterstones in the US. Oh, hello, Debbie. Hello, lovely to see you pop in. Yeah, in the US, Barnes and Noble stock it. And if you go onto my publisher Moon Books website, then there are some other links you can click on there. Now, I thought I'd mention some of the... okay. Can you recommend some steps for scrying for beginners? Yeah, well, I can. I do go into that quite a lot in my book. Now, what I would say is preparation is really important. Setting up the space, finding a suitable time of day, a suitable lighting, a kind of a dim light. I tend to find it best to scry personally around the time of the full moon. Generally speaking, at a kind of a liminal time of day, so twilight is good, by candlelight. Or a lot of people say that later into the night is good, like the witching hour, midnight. But I would say close the curtains and light a candle, or scry under moonlight. They're all very good. Meditate first and be patient. I think a lot of people find that they're expecting something like a film show to appear in the crystal ball, and it probably won't be quite, that vivid. It might be, some people do, but for me personally, I will probably have to wait a minute or two, perhaps even a little bit longer, and then I will see symbols, and they could be quite vague. So be open to even the smallest things you're perceiving, whether you're seeing that, whether you're aware of some shape within the crystal that suddenly becomes more obvious to you than it was. If you're hearing something, if you suddenly get a sort of you think of something, something pops into your head, and well, that could be a random thought, but it could be something important. All of those things, anything, any perception that comes to you could be valid. And so I would say it's more a question of learning to pick up on small things rather than trying big changes, and be patient. So yeah, but yeah, the book has lots of exercises in that you can try out. Yeah, no, I'm running a few workshops and talks now. Tomorrow at Treadwell's, I am running a scrying workshop. That one is fully booked up, but there will be others. But after the workshop, I'm also doing a book signing, and I'll be in the main shop, and you can just pop in and say hi. You don't have to buy a book. It'd just be nice to see people. But you can buy a book and I'll sign it. Oh, thank you, Concha. Okay, yeah, then, so yes, at 3:30, I'll be signing books in Treadwell's. Then on Saturday, the 26th of March, I'll be at the Leaping Hare Conference. Now, that is a day of talks and workshops and storytelling and a market. And that is in Highwoods Community Centre, Colchester. And tickets are £8 on the door. That includes all the talks and workshops. Oh, right, brilliant. Sean, I'm really sorry, I've probably utterly mangled your name. I do apologise. But yes, Hive sells Pagan Portals Scrying. Also, book, I think it's uk.bookshop.org, bookshop.org. That is also like an online like portal where independent bookshops sell books, so you can look there as well. Yeah, and it should be very widely available. You should be able to get it in most places that you can buy books. So yes, I'm going to be at Leaping Hare, and then on Saturday the 2nd of April I will be giving a Zoom lecture called Scrying Crystal Balls, Dark Mirrors and Vessels of Water through the Last Tuesday Society. And tickets for that are £5.82. It's at 7:30 in the evening on the 2nd of April. And you can book tickets if you look for the Last Tuesday Society on Eventbrite, and also on the Last Tuesday Society website, you can book tickets. Then later in the year, I'll be giving a live talk at Dragonfly Yoga Studio and Book Club in South East London, in Sydenham. They do quite a lot of events, and I'll be giving an online talk for the Doreen Valiente Foundation, and I'll be talking at MoonCon 21 in early July. Now, if you go to my blog, www.badwitch.co.uk, or a Bad Witches blog, then I do list the events that I'm doing and also other events. So you can always catch up with what I'm doing there. Right. Well, are there any other questions? I'm not seeing any other questions. Well, I'm going to say thank you very, very much to the people who are watching now. And also, thanks very much to the people who are going to watch the recording later. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you get a chance to have a look at my book. But anyway, I hope I also see you at some of the events that are happening over the coming year. So, thank you very much, and goodbye.